Race session is at Donington Park National Circuit in Donington, Great Britain. Riley Gallardo is first. Panzer F1 is P2. Ted Hoff is third. James Pendry is fourth. Kevin Woodward is P5. Walter Phillips is P6. Shea Stanley is P7. Gordon Jacobson is 8th. Jen Markov is P9. Andrew G is P10. Riley Gallardo is first.
Boogity, boogity, boogity! Let's go racing, boys!
Ted Hoff in Wheatcroft Straight is P2. Panzer F1 in Craner Curves is third. James Pendry is fifth. Andrew G in McLean's is P9. Panzer F1 in Starkey's Straight is P3. Kevin Woodward in Wheatcroft Straight is 5th, 0.7 behind James Pendry. Panzer F1 in Starkey's Briggy is 3rd, 0.7 behind Ted Hoff. Jen Markov in McLean's is P9, 0.9 behind Andrew G. Ted Hoff in Wheatcroft Straight is 2nd, 1.0 ahead of Panzer F1. Jen Markov in Wheatcroft Straight is P9, 0.5 behind Andrew G. Andrew G in Hollywood is P9, 0.2 behind Jen Markov. Andrew G passed Jen Markov for 8th. Ted Hoff in Starkey's Straight is P2. Panzer F1 in Wheatcroft Straight is third, 1.1 behind Ted Hoff. Ted Hoff in Starkeysburg is second, 0.7 behind Riley Gallardo. Shea Stanley is ninth, 0.3 behind Jen Markov. Ted Hoff in Roberts is second, 0.7 behind Riley Gallardo. Shea Stanley in Starkey's Straight is P9, 0.6 behind Jen Markov. Ted Hoff in McLean's is second, 0.6 behind Riley Gallardo. Shea Stanley in Hollywood is ninth, 0.2 behind Jen Markov. Shea Stanley passed Jen Markov for P8. Shea Stanley lost 8th to Jen Markov. Ted Hoff in Wheatcroft Straight is P2. Jen Markov in Starkey's Straight is P9, 0.8 behind Shea Stanley. Ted Hoff is second, 0.6 behind Riley Gallardo. James Pendry in Roberts is fourth, 0.7 behind Panzer F1. Ted Hoff is P2, 0.5 behind Riley Gallardo. James Pendry is fourth, 0.4 behind Panzer F1. Ted Hoff in Coppice is second, 0.8 behind Riley Gallardo. James Pendry in Starkey's Straight is 4th, 0.3 behind Panzer F1. Panzer F1 in Wheatcroft Straight is 4th battling James Pendry. Ted Hoff is P2, 0.7 behind Riley Gallardo. Panzer F1 in McLean's is P4, 0.3 behind James Pendry. Ted Hoff in Starkey's Straight is 2nd, 0.5 behind Riley Gallardo. Panzer F1 in Wheatcroft Straight is 4th, 0.9 behind James Pendry. Ted Hoff in Old Hairpin is 2nd, 0.1 behind Riley Gallardo. Ted Hoff passed Riley Gallardo for 1st. Riley Gallardo is P2, 1.2 behind Ted Hoff. Panzer F1 in Starkey's Straight is P4, 1.5 behind James Pendry. Riley Gallardo in Craner Curves is P2, 1.5 behind Ted Hoff. Panzer F1 inch once curve is P4, 1.3 behind James Pendry. Riley Gallardo in Starkey's Straight is P2, 0.7 behind Ted Hoff. Panzer F1 in Redgate is 4th. Riley Gallardo inch once curve is 2nd, 0.6 behind Ted Hoff. Panzer F1 in Starkey's Straight is 4th, 1.5 behind James Pendry. Riley Gallardo in Redgate is 2nd, 0.9 behind Ted Hoff. Panzer F1 is 4th, 2.0 behind James Pendry. Riley Gallardo in Starkey's Straight is 2nd, 0.8 behind Ted Hoff. Panzer F1 in Wheatcroft Straight on lap 12 is 4th, 1.8 behind James Pendry. Riley Gallardo in Old Hairpin is P2, 0.7 behind Ted Hoff. Panzer F1 is P4, 0.9 behind James Pendry. Riley Gallardo in Wheatcroft Straight is 2nd, 0.7 behind Ted Hoff. Panzer F1 is 4th, 2.3 behind James Pendry. Riley Gallardo is 2nd, 0.3 behind Ted Hoff. Panzer F1 in Coppice is 4th, 1.7 behind James Pendry. Riley Gallardo in Wheatcroft Straight is P2, 0.8 behind Ted Hoff. Panzer F1 in Craner Curves is P4, 2.2 behind James Pendry. Riley Gallardo on lap 15 is P2, 0.5 behind Ted Hoff. The leader has just finished the race. Ted Hoff finished P1. Riley Gallardo finished P2. James Pendry finished P3. Panzeref 1 finished P4. Kevin Woodward finished 5th. Jen Markov finished 9th. Walter Phillips finished 6th. Gordon Jacobson finished P7. Shea Stanley finished P8. Andrew G finished P10. Session is at Donington Park National Circuit in Donington, Great Britain. Andrew G is P1. Jen Markov is 2nd. Shea Stanley is 3rd. Gordon Jacobson is 4th. Walter Phillips is P5. Kevin Woodward is 6th. Panzeref 1 is 7th. James Pendry is 8th. Riley Gallardo is P9. Ted Hoff is P10. Andrew G is P1.
Boogity, boogity, boogity! Let's go racing, boys!
Shea Stanley in Wheatcroft Straight is P2. Shea Stanley is now first. Walter Phillips in Hollywood is second. Riley Gallardo is P3. Riley Gallardo passed Walter Phillips for P2. James Pendry is fourth. James Pendry passed Walter Phillips for third. Panzer F1 in Starkey's Straight is P4. Ted Hoff in Wheatcroft Straight is P5. Ted Hoff passed James Pendry for P3. Shea Stanley in Redgate is P3, 0.1 ahead of James Pendry. Shea Stanley lost P4 to Panzer F1. Walter Phillips in Craner Curves is P6. Kevin Woodward is P8, 0.4 behind Gordon Jacobson. Panzer F1 in Coppice is fourth. Gordon Jacobson in Starkey's Straight is 8th, 0.3 behind Kevin Woodward. Panzer F1 in Wheatcroft Straight is P4, 0.3 behind James Pendry. Kevin Woodward in Wheatcroft Straight is P8, 0.2 behind Jen Markoff. Kevin Woodward passed Jen Markoff for P7. Panzer F1 is P4, 0.2 behind James Pendry. Walter Phillips in Coppice is 6th, 0.9 behind Shea Stanley. Panzer F1 in Starkey's Straight is 4th, 0.2 behind James Pendry. Ted Hoff in Hollywood is 2nd, 1.8 behind Riley Gallardo. Shea Stanley in Craner Curves is P6, 0.5 behind Panzer F1. Shea Stanley is now P5. Shea Stanley lost P6 to Panzer F1. Shea Stanley lost 8th to Gordon Jacobson. Gordon Jacobson is P8, 0.4 behind Jen Markov. Jen Markov is 8th, 0.2 behind Gordon Jacobson. James Pendry in Hollywood is 3rd, 2.4 behind Ted Hoff. Shea Stanley is P9, 2.5 behind Jen Markov. James Pendry in Starkey's Straight is 3rd, 2.0 behind Ted Hoff. Shea Stanley in Coppice is P9, 0.5 behind Jen Markov. Jen Markov in Starkey's Straight is 9th, 0.2 behind Shea Stanley. Gordon Jacobson is P7, 1.4 behind Kevin Woodward. Jen Markov is P9, 1.7 behind Shea Stanley. Gordon Jacobson in Starkey's Straight is 7th. James Pendry on lap 7 is 3rd, 2.9 behind Ted Hoff. Gordon Jacobson on lap 7 is P7, 0.9 behind Kevin Woodward. Gordon Jacobson is now 6th. James Pendry in Wheatcroft Straight is 3rd, 2.5 behind Ted Hoff. Shea Stanley in Wheatcroft Straight is P7, 4.0 behind Gordon Jacobson. Kevin Woodward in Redgate on lap 8 is 9th, 3.6 behind Jen Markov. James Pendry in Wheatcroft Straight is P3, 3.9 behind Ted Hoff. Jen Markov is P9, 0.1 behind Kevin Woodward. James Pendry in Schwantz Curve is P3, 3.5 behind Ted Hoff. Jen Markov on lap 9 is P9, 2.9 behind Kevin Woodward. Shea Stanley is 7th, 3.3 behind Gordon Jacobson. James Pendry in Starkeysburg is 3rd, 3.8 behind Ted Hoff. Shea Stanley in Hollywood is 7th. Shea Stanley passed Gordon Jacobson for P6. James Pendry in Wheatcroft Straight on lap 11 is P3, 3.8 behind Ted Hoff. Jen Markov is 9th, 4.8 behind Gordon Jacobson. James Pendry in Coppice is P3. Jen Markov is P9, 1.8 behind Gordon Jacobson. Kevin Woodward in Coppice is 7th. Jen Markoff in Starkey's Straight is 9th, 4.3 behind Gordon Jacobson. James Pendry is 3rd, 3.9 behind Ted Hoff. Kevin Woodward is 7th, 4.4 behind Shea Stanley. Walter Phillips in Hollywood on lap 13 is P4. Kevin Woodward is 7th, 3.8 behind Shea Stanley. Panzer F1 in Starkey's Straight is 5th, 4.4 behind Walter Phillips. Kevin Woodward in Starkey's Straight is P7, 2.8 behind Shea Stanley. Panzer F1 is P5, 3.0 behind Walter Phillips. Kevin Woodward is P7, 3.8 behind Shea Stanley. Panzer F1 in Wheatcroft Straight is 5th, 1.4 behind Walter Phillips. The leader has just finished the race. Riley Gallardo finished first. Gordon Jacobson finished P8. Ted Hoff finished 2nd. James Pendry finished P3. Jen Markoff finished 9th. Walter Phillips finished 4th. Panzer F1 finished 5th. Shea Stanley finished 6th. Kevin Woodward finished P7. Andrew G finished 10th.